All right, welcome to another episode of Freezin for NFC North Podcast, episode number 21. This episode, we are talking about the NFC North 2022 NFL Draft review, and we are going to be focusing on the Bears and the Packers. I am joined, as always, by Gridiron Grubb. How are you doing, sir?
Doing fantastic. Glad to be in here tonight. Excited.
Absolutely. We had a chance to talk Lions and Vikings stuff last week. I know we do have Cooper is under the weather, so he is off this week, uneducated takes. He will hopefully be back next week as we kind of talk about some of the schedule release, all that fun stuff as we prepare for the year. And I'm really excited to have a guest. We have a couple guests. Hopefully we have our Packers guest coming pretty soon. But right now I'm excited to welcome Mike, host of On the Go Chicago Sports, to the podcast. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here. I appreciate it. So, yeah.
You know, and
welcome in, man.
Thank you.
As a Bears fan, it is nice to have a Bears-centric podcast. We've been waiting for that. I've been waiting for that. So, I mean, we can definitely get right into it. I know, Grubb, you're excited.
Oh, of course. I mean, come on. I'm ready to rip on some Bears.
Oh, hey. I'm okay with that. Well, let's just kind of get right into it with the Bears draft picks. Obviously, you know, there are a lot of needs that the Bears have, and wide receiver was a glaring need. When we started the draft, they didn't pick a wide receiver right away. They chose a couple picks. So what were your thoughts, you know, on draft day, the draft few days, in some of the picks that they decided to make at the front end there, Mike?
I wasn't mad. Sad note, as much as I love offense, I am a defensive guy. I love watching great defense. So for that part, I wasn't mad. I feel like we picked up two great, defensive back. The secondary was horrible last year. Post did say he wasn't going to reach for like a receiver or any other position. He's going to take best available. So I feel like he took, best available. Yes, we could have got a Alec Pierce, Christian Watson, but I feel like he stuck to his guns, waited it out. We end up getting a Velus Jones. I really like the Velus Jones pickup. The only knock people says is his age, which I'm not tripping on his age. I think he got the same attributes as the rest of the guys got, good hands, excellent speed, a nice route runner, and he can, I think he led all receivers in YAC, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I'm not mad at the first two picks, not at all.
Yeah, when you look at what the Bears need, there's so many holes to fill. And before we kind of get to that, I'm going to welcome. We have a hole to fill here with our Packer person. We're going to welcome in Dale from Average Cheese, and we'll add him into the mix here. Welcome, Dale. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm sorry I'm late.
No worries. Just in time for the Bears talk here.
Oh, excellent. You're glad I showed up on time then. Let's go. I'm ready.
Welcome.
So we're talking about all the holes that the Bears had to fill. And, some fans might have been a little upset that the Bears didn't go ahead and, pick a wide receiver right away. But, as, Mike had talked about, the secondary was horrible, and when you look at Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker, I mean, those are huge needs, and they're going to be big parts of the defense, aren't they, Mike?
I think day one starters.
And that's what when you're looking at the draft and what the Bears have done in the draft in the past, there have been so many reaches, obviously Mitch Trubisky, but there's so many reaches, and if you have day one starters and there's so many holes, that is the goal of the draft, of the general manager, and I was happy to see that.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts, kind of as you were watching that, Dale?
I really like Jaquan Brisker. I mean, I think that's the best pick in the draft for them. Big time football player. I just think that guy makes plays, and I think that as much as I hate to say it about Bears draft pick, that's the one I like the best, and I think he's good value there in the second round too. There weren't a lot of safeties picked in the first round, so is it high? I don't think so, but it could. I don't know. I just think it's good value. I don't know how to explain it better than that, but I really like that pick for them.
Yeah, and you really need a solid cornerback, solid safety when you have teams in the division, that have solid wide receivers like the Vikings and the Lions, and at least a solid quarterback like the Packers.
Well, everybody in the North is going to throw it around.
Exactly.
Right? Even Jared Goff is going to throw it around from time to time. I mean, you have Kirk Cousins, and I think Justin Fields. We've talked about it before. I think he's going to be a great player at some point, but there's going to be guys in the NFL and the NFC North throwing it around. So other teams are going to have to throw it against the Bears too.
Absolutely. And Grubb, what were your thoughts kind of on Velus Jones from your looking at draft and everything?
Well, and that's where I was going even when we talked about the Lions picks before the draft, pre-draft, right? I thought, what the Bears did is kind of something that I was hoping the Lions would do, right? Is kind of be patient on that receiver. The receiver depth in this draft was so deep that I thought you could get such great value later on. I think the Bears actually did a great job. I know people say like, Mike's over here, and that's what people are talking about the age and all these things. I really think that was such a good pick. They waited. They looked at their first three picks are things they really needed, right? Secondary and a receiver. So you can't be mad at that. They could have swapped them up a little bit, right? You could have got one for the other, maybe a receiver in there. But with the depth at receiver this year, I just thought I thought the Bears had a good first early, rounds there, getting value. And they really did. They held their ground. They didn't trade away a bunch of picks. They didn't do a bunch of things to give up anything, to move up and try to rush a receiver. And that's what I was hoping the Lions wouldn't do, even though that's what they did. It ended up okay. But again, I thought it was such a draft with such depth in the draft at that position. I didn't think it was necessary for teams to do that, especially a team like Chicago, who could get such great value in the defensive end where they did. I think they did a good job in those first three picks for sure.
Yeah, we had talked about, at least brought up, prior to the draft that Velus Jones Jr. might be an interesting, target for the Packers. And, as I've studied him, obviously I'm glad the Bears have him. He maybe they still need another wide receiver, I think. But I liked what he does kind of with the underneath routes, with the curls, getting him the ball in space. And I think that'll be helpful, pairing that with Mooney. Now, yeah, I think there's going to be another big time receiver they're going to need probably next year. They're signing some other players as well. So that's kind of helpful, but I like the pick there. You got the cornerback, safety, wide receiver, and then they went ahead and went offensive tackle. What was your thought on that tackle? And was that maybe a tackle that you were kind of targeted at all, Mike, when you looked at the draft?
Which about Braxton Jones?
Yeah. And what do you know about him?
To be honest, I wasn't really scouting offensive line. I'm not an offensive line guru, so I wasn't really, it's hard to scout linemen. But when I did do my research on Braxton Jones, when I see him talk, sounded real smart, intelligent. One of the guys asked him, "Have you ever been into a fight? Like, you seem so nice." And he was like, "Yeah, I've been into a couple of fights. I'm nasty on the field," and that was something good to hear because he did sound nice. But I know when it comes to playing football, he probably got another gear he can turn it to. So I think he's going to be a nice pickup, a nice player.
Absolutely. And we have another Packer, connection here added on. It's going to be Packers and Bears tonight. So here we go. Welcoming Parker Mose. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good. Right in here with the rest of us, and we are talking some Bears. We'll get to the Packers eventually, but sometimes the Mike, as you were kind of talking about Braxton Jones kind of getting nasty, so obviously sometimes the Packers and Bears rivalry can get nasty, and that's obviously why we wanted to pair these two tonight on this. And So when you look at Braxton Jones, that was a good pickup, and you kind of get further on, doing the edge and offensive tackle, and you kind of get a little bit further in. Any kind of gems that you see in there as well on the rest of the draft, Mike?
I think Dominic Robinson will be a gem. I think he's still got untapped potential. He's still kind of a raw product right now, but I think with some development, he could turn into a nice player. Zach Thomas looked at like he can play some guard too. Kramer, I think Kramer is ways away from being a starter. Treston, I really like Treston. I think Treston can be a backup running back if they decide to let Montgomery go next season.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that running back room is nice right now with those three guys. A lot of speed. So yeah, I think this draft was a good draft.
I was
one of the best I've seen as a Bears fan.
I would agree. And what were your thoughts, Parker, when you saw some of these draft picks that the Bears were taking?
One of them that really stood out to me was wide receiver Velus Jones. I think it was a good pickup for them. I'm not sure necessarily if he's going to be a starter right away, but I think he can build up into one. That's really the only one that kind of stood out to me. Maybe Kyler Gordon. I really haven't seen a lot on him, though. The only real one that stood out to me was Velus Jones. So,
what about further into into the draft for you, Dale?
As far as the Bears draft goes?
Yeah.
What I think the Bears needed to do was just stack a bunch of picks and start building their roster. So what you said before, you can't move up, get rid of a bunch of picks for a guy that you might want to reach for. They need to build a roster from within. They got to get younger and get more talented. And if they did that with these 9 guys, then they're better off. I mean, moving up wasn't going to help them. There isn't a guy in the draft that is going to put them over the top next year. And I think that's a great idea it's a new GM. And I think that if they continue that idea and don't go after splash guys, they're going to build a roster that they can, compete in the North with at some point.
Yeah, some Bears fans, they don't want to hear that. They want the splash guy.
Right. Everybody wants right now, right? Everybody wants to win right now today. But if you don't have that roster, that one guy not going to make that happen.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think as an honest Bears fan, 2022 is not the year. I don't see them competing in the division. I've had Packer fans kind of troll me on on Twitter and say, oh, the Bears are going to be last. Yeah, they probably will be, and I'm all right with that. I am okay with that, knowing that they're building the right way. And I like what Ryan Poles is doing in kind of the team direction. What are your thoughts on that, Mike, on what he's doing?
I think he's doing a great job. He building the team the right way. As we see now, we see teams going all in for on these quarterbacks rookie contract. Like, for example, you got the Tua situations. They went all in on Tua. If that don't go right, now the Dolphins might be scrambling to trying to find a starting quarterback to trying to win now. So, Justin Fields situations, you don't have to rush. If Justin Fields not the guy, I mean, you could just go and get you another quarterback. You're not rushing to try to go get another bridge guy like a Matt Ryan or a Ryan Fitzpatrick, somebody to win now. So I think he's doing a great job with just buying low on these young players, and hopefully you can strike gold.
I would agree. And anytime we have to bring up Dolphins talk, I have to ask Grubb questions.
I forgot he was a Dolphins fan. Tua was the only thing. The one.
No, that's perfect. So, Grubb, what are your thoughts as you kind of look on the outside in from the Bears and team direction?
Well, I mean, you can always you can end up in the same situation because, I mean, we're talking a couple years difference, right? So Fields just coming out last year. Well, where are they going to be in 2 years? And that's the question, right? So when it's time to re-up, right, when he's going to enter that 5th year, Is he the man? So every team, no matter what, when you draft a quarterback, you get down to that decision. When it comes to the third and fourth year into their contract, they have to start looking at these things, right? And is he the guy? Do we build around him? Do we give him a chance? Do we go out and make some big moves? And the Bears are gonna have to do that in 2 years, right? So they can build young now, but that's what you're talking about the Dolphins. So that's what the Dolphins did, right? They drafted young defense. They've got one of the best young defenses in the league, right? And so they went out and drafted that. Now it's on, hey, what do we got to do to have this offense? Is this quarterback our quarterback? Well, the same thing's going to happen for the Bears, right? They're drafting a young defense. They're going to bring in these new guys. It's the same scenario no matter what team it is, right? So is it Carson Wentz? It doesn't matter what quarterback, right? Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo. It doesn't matter. When a team's they got to go all in at some point to see what they've got, right? And that's what a lot of our talk in the off season was at the end of the season with even the Packers, with the Packer guys on here, right? When is it time, even though Rodgers is there, when is it time to say, okay, let's try Love. Is Love the guy, right? Or can we move on to that next guy? So every team has to make a decision at some point based off their quarterback. That's the star of the team, right? That's what makes the team go no matter what. Even if you have a great defense, you've got to have a quarterback that can play the position and be smart. And so you either build around that with a defense, but at some point, especially with these young quarterbacks now with that fifth year option, right? Everybody's got to go all in at some point, or they just say, if they're not going all in, that guy's not going to be their quarterback. I mean, that's just how it is. Because if they're not going there, hey, we got to give this guy the tool. So it's going to happen to the Bears. It's going to happen to Fields. And again, eventually here in a couple years, the Packers are going to be on board in that boat, trying to figure out who's next, right? And so it's just the same rotation for each team, but you have to find out if your guy is the guy at some point, and you've got to go all in for him. You can't just give him a bunch of scrubs and say, okay, go out here and see what you can do. I mean, you got to give the guy the weapons to do it. So Fields is going to have some weapons over the next couple of years to figure out, is he really the guy, right? Because we know he's got the talent and we know he's got the skills, but Tua is the same way in Miami, right? Has the most, even last year, people give him a lot of crap, but for the last 8 weeks of the season, he was the top rated quarterback, and he's the only quarterback to go over 105 QB rating, right? More than 2 times in the season last year, right? The only quarterback. So people weigh on him real heavy because he had such a collegiate career, but it's the same thing with Fields, right? They're going to start to nitpick every little thing he does if it's not winning, and that's what happens. And so it's going to come down for the Bears to just is he the guy? But that's not this season, and it might start the next season, but that following season, when it comes up for that 5th-year contract, that's when they're going to decide, and they're going to have to go either all in or they're going to go, hey, we're finding someone else, and that's where they're going to get to.
Yeah, I was saying just for I wouldn't do that in year 2 because let's say I do get from all
exactly, Mike. Yeah, no, you're right. No, not year 2. That's what I say. Right now you build around it, but that's what the Dolphins did in the same scenario, right? They didn't go all in on Tua, rookie season or second season, right? They built other components of the team, and that's what the Bears are doing right now. And that's what I say. But in a couple of years, the Bears are going to have to go, okay, well, now's our chance. Let's go all in, right, on Fields. Let's see what he's got. We'll give him some big time weapons and some things like that. And that's now they could draft a guy who becomes a big time, and then that's what you say, hit some gold. If you hit some gold on the receiver, then you're in good shape. And I thought this year, that's what I say with the draft, there was a lot of gold receivers. There was a lot of great value receivers in that late first round to early third round. There was some really good talent in there that could pop as some gold.
So Parker is and didn't introduce you, but you are from Lombardi Avenue, a fan side affiliate. So thanks for joining us here as well. And as a Packer person, kind of looking on the outside, do you think Justin Fields has what it takes?
I think so. Yeah. Like these guys have been saying, I think he's pretty kind of still raw a little bit. He's going to take some development still, but I think eventually within the next few years, he could definitely become a pretty good quarterback. So even now, I mean, you look at the last, 2 to 3 games that the Packers and Bears have had so far with Fields at quarterback, they've been pretty competitive. So I expect nothing less from that. And even with Rodgers at quarterback, it's still going to be pretty competitive. So I think the Bears have pretty good handle on their quarterback situation right now. So,
well, let me go around real quick. And would you rather have Fields or Tua?
Oh, I'd rather have Justin Fields all day long. I think the physical tools are there that Tua doesn't have the physical tools that Justin Fields has. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
Whether the Bears can keep
if you could combine the guys, then you could give Fields Tua's smarts and accuracy, like his field reading the field. If you could combine those two guys, it'd be amazing. But what's great about Fields, he has the physical tools that you can't. Tua can't. You can't just create those, right? Like the running and all the game that he has. He can actually learn the game better. You know, he can learn those things and create some of those assets that Tua has, whereas Tua can't create those legs and that type of athleticism.
What do you think, Mike? Are you obviously in on Fields?
Yeah. I like Tua though, but I'm all in on Fields.
Yeah, I mean, it's so early to call him a bust and and all that after 1 year. Even Tua, I think, give him opportunity in Mike McDaniel's offense. But with Fields, it's so important. Coaching is so important. And obviously the Bears really messed that up. And I mean, you were happy to see Nagy go, right, Mike?
For sure.
I was sad to see him go.
Hey, you were sad to see him go, like I was sad to see McCarthy go.
That's fair.
So no more massages.
No. So when we look at the Bears, this is obvious. I mean, we don't know the schedule. I mean, how many wins do we think the Bears are going to have realistically in this season?
I mean, we won 6 games with Nagy, so I think we can get about 6-7 games.
Dale, what do you think?
I think that's about right. 6 or 7 wins. I think that they're a better team this year, and I assume they're going to be better coached this year than they've been in the past. But they still got to play. They still got to play the Packers twice. They still got to play Minnesota twice. And I think that Detroit is a better football team too.
Yeah, for sure.
How much better I don't know, but I think those are going to be competitive football games too. There's not the game.
Yeah, this division is going to be interesting. It's going to be a very interesting division this season.
In the next 2 years.
But everybody can pile on the Bears, but I mean, look who went to the Super Bowl this year. I'd like to know one person on this entire planet that was like, oh, the Bengals will be in the Super Bowl, or the Bengals will even win the division, or
a certain
you never know, man.
A certain former Lions quarterback picked them to go to the Super Bowl or be a contender.
Well, I got to give him credit because everybody.
What's that? Yeah,
I mean, there's one guy on the planet.
Pretty much.
Yeah, there you go. You got one guy. Because, but so the Bears, look, people can nag on whoever they want to nag on before the season starts. But you never know what team's going to step up. I mean, if you broke down the Bengals going into the last season, horrible offensive line, very questionable defense, and then it all came together, and look what happened. I mean, it was nuts. So you just never know. You never know. And with this division being the way that it is now, anything's up in the air, really. I mean, it takes one injury. It takes anything for any of these other teams and they're out. Rodgers go down for a couple games or whatever. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen, right? And so it's going to be an interesting year, and that's just where it's at in this division. Who knows? The Bears might pop out and win a couple of division games early, and then there you are. You have no clue what happened the way the season goes down the rest of the year.
Tell you what, as a Bears fan, I would rather be at this point now when we see a plan, because I like what Ryan Poles has done. There's just a better structure. We have an assistant GM that he's just doing a lot of things that unfortunately the ownership has not done in a long time. So I like all of that. I like that, he's very accessible. There's just a lot to like about him in the direction. And I'm okay. I would rather be here than, a few other teams that are just kind of, they're not sure what they are, but they're trying to do something with big time free agents. I mean, that's what the Bears were for a while. I mean, they were trying to patch holes and with all these big name, free agents who were past their prime, and it was not good.
That's true. That is really true. I look at this Bulls team like I look at how the Bulls was like they building the foundation. The first year evaluation, then the next year you make the moves and you build the brand back up. Now everybody want to come play for the Bears, and so that's how I look at this process going. It's a slow process, but towards the end, it's going to get better. So I'm happy.
I'm happy too, and obviously we can kind of transition now to a team that I'm not usually happy playing, but it's going to get better. It's going to be interesting, obviously as Rodgers kind of ages and kind of even to see what happens this year. So let's just kind of dive right into it. The Packers. What were your thoughts on Dale? As they were making their picks. I mean, were you surprised that they didn't go wide receiver right away?
Maybe not right away, but I thought for sure in the first round there would be a wide receiver on one of the picks. When they picked Quay Walker, I thought, okay, it's a little bit of a reach, but he's a Devondre Campbell clone. He's super athletic guy. So, okay, the next pick will be a wide receiver. But then when you look, those 6 guys are off the board. It's like, okay, do we stretch for Christian Watson? Do we move up for George Pickens? Like, are those guys value in that second pick? And then I started to think, as much as I want a wide receiver, I'm not sure. But it's not fantasy football, you know what I mean? So you got to pick one at some point. And I worried that they were going to wait because Christian Watson was not going to be there at 53. George Pickens was not going to be there at 53, in my opinion. So I was a little concerned after the first day, and I thought, I don't know what they're going to do. Linebacker was a huge surprise. I'll just say that. Inside linebacker, we haven't picked the inside linebacker since what? AJ Hawk, maybe in the first round. I can't remember the last time, but it's been a long, long time.
Sounds about right.
And it was just so I was very surprised, but you have to look at it in entirety. But after the first day, I was ready to throw my computer against the wall.
Were you there right with him, Parker?
Yeah, I would say so. Obviously, I think Quay Walker, the selection of Quay Walker was quite surprising to most Packer fans and most media, NFL media members alike too. But I think the main reason, to me at least, why they went with Walker is probably because of most of the receivers that they wanted in the first round were already picked. The biggest one that I wanted them to try to get was Chris Olave out of Ohio State. But then once the Saints traded back up ahead of us, I was like, oh, yep, they're going to get him. And then they got him. So that's, unfortunately how the cookie crumbles sometimes in the draft. So eventually, obviously, we got to the second round and we got Watson. We traded up with the Vikings to get him. And I think he's going to turn out to be a pretty good player. So Rodgers, I guess, texted him right after he got picked, and they're looking to get to work. So I'm pretty excited about it.
But when you look at Watson, I mean, obviously there's a huge need at wide receiver for the Packers.
Yeah.
You can't really expect him to come in day one and be Devontae Adams now, right?
No.
Because even Devontae Adams took 3 years, right?
Right, yeah. Nobody's going to be able to come in and replicate that type of production. It's just not going to be. It's not feasible. It's not realistic. No matter if we would have chosen Chris Olave, it wouldn't have been. That's still, that's a monumental hill to climb for a rookie. So, obviously, I think there's some sort of they're put on a pedestal. Obviously, being from the Packers and being drafted by them and things like that. But I mean, you look at the progression of Adams when he got drafted in 14. I mean, he was dropped Vontae Adams. Right when he got he just constantly dropping passes, didn't catch any balls. It took him a while to get acclimated, really. So I think you're going to see the same thing with Watson, but I think you're going to see more of an upside. I think you're going to see it quicker with Watson.
What are your thoughts on that Watson pick, Grubb?
Well, I get kind of back to what we were talking about a while ago. I think being patient in this draft was okay. I think the Packers, they went with what their board was. I agree where so they wanted maybe certain receivers and they weren't there. So they said, okay, we're going with Walker. Like they drafted on their board. A lot of these teams will just draft from their board. They'll draft who's the best, but it doesn't matter what their position needs are, right? And so I think the Packers did that a little bit, knowing, again, there was such depth in this draft at receiver. So, yeah, you can get one of these superstars up here with the big names that you think is going to be a superstar. We don't know who's going to be a superstar yet, but you could also be patient in this draft with receiver if you needed one. And the Packers did the same thing that I think the Bears did. The Bears drafted needs, but off of their board. And I think the Packers just drafted best players off their board. They went, okay, maybe inside linebacker is not something that we're just really keen on having, but this is the guy at the top of our board. He's sitting here where we're picking. Okay, let's pick him, right? And, and I think to go get Watson later on, and they made some moves to make that happen. Obviously, that was a guy they had on their board, and they said, okay, now's the time we've got to make a move on the receiver because we weren't able to do it earlier in the draft. And they did, if you're going to move up in the first round, you got to give away a lot of capital. And so I think they just stayed patient. And when they could move up and it not cost them as much capital, they made a move and they got the receiver that they wanted. And I think he does have a chance. Again, Devontae Adams, everybody, when they drafted him, his first year, he looked like he had talent. Then all of a sudden, the second year and all these things, everybody's like, oh, he's garbage, right? And then he turned into who he turned into. So you never know who you're going to get with some of these kids. But, yeah, I think it was I think they did a good job again, right? They followed their board. They followed their draft. They followed some of their needs in that. And then they got a good kid who he's got some really great athletic ability, right? And you can watch some of his highlights. He makes some really spectacular catches. So, I mean, they got a kid that if he can get in there and he can hack it and he can learn, how to run these routes. And he's got obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the game going to be throwing to him, who has turned a lot of receivers. Again, we talked about this last season. I mean, look at his. Okay, so he had Devontae Adams, but still, look at the rest of the receiver core that he's dealt with, and Lazard and all these guys look like they're this sometimes they look like real spectacular talents, and you have to go, that's pretty incredible for what the quarterback can do. So if Watson if he does have these special talents and he can be a top receiver 1-2 in the league. As far as for the Packers, a number 1 or number 2 receiver, then they got a really good deal right there, right? So I think it was a good pick, and they made their move when they needed to.
What about this other wide receiver, Dale Romeo? And I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Romeo Dobbs?
Dobbs, yeah.
Yeah, I think he is more polished. He's a 4-year guy, made a lot of plays at Nevada. Now, granted, it's not a Power 5 school, but he's played a lot of football. And I think that he might have the opportunity to make a bigger splash in year one than Christian Watson. Christian Watson played the Albanys and the South Dakota States of the world. There's going to be a little bit of he's going to have to change the way he plays the game because they're all going to be talented guys that he's playing against. Whereas Romeo Dobbs has played big time football, so I think that he has the opportunity to make a big splash in this season. Christian Watson is that 2 years down the road, develops as a player, becomes a little bit more physical with his hands, that kind of thing. I think he's going to have to learn how to play the game at the NFL level. It's going to take him a little bit longer. So I'm excited about both guys. And like you just said, there was value in this draft in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th round for wide receivers. And this guy's a huge value, in my opinion. I think he comes in and I don't want to say he catches more balls than Watson, but I think you're going to see it early from him.
Mike, are we worried at all by this Packers wide receiver core now?
I mean, no. I mean, it's gonna be good. Don't get me wrong, but now that we got we got Brisker, we got Gordon, got Jalen Johnson. Hopefully, Eddie Jackson can bounce back. We didn't mention Elijah Hicks. We can throw him in there. So I feel like our secondary is way better than last year. We can keep up. We ain't got to deal with Devontae Adams cooking us twice a year.
Yeah.
I feel like we can maintain Watson, Cobbs, and those guys for right now till they get to where they're supposed to be. So I'm not too worried, but I'm worried about the quarterback. That's my main worry is Aaron Rodgers. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, Parker is Aaron Rodgers is probably one of the best regular season quarterbacks of all time. right?
Right.
And in division, yeah, I mean, if the Bears were in contention, I would be more worried about them. So I'm not worried about them because of where the Bears are at, from my perspective. Right? The other
Right.
rest of the division, yes, does need to be worried about him. But is Aaron Rodgers good enough to elevate these receivers to the next level? And will it take him, quite a while to trust them, to get to that point? Because he seems to take a while to trust his receivers.
Right.
And then also, I believe he's going to be skipping some of the off-season work as well, right?
Right. Yep, he is. Yeah. I think, obviously, I mean, I'm going back to Davante Adams again because it's sort of the focal point. When he got drafted in 2014, it took him a long time to get acclimated. I think it took him like what 2 to 3 years to completely become the guy, right? And I think obviously, he got overshadowed by Jordy in his first year or two, and then obviously Jordy kind of faded out, and then eventually went to Oakland, and then we all know how that story played out. Kind of funny how Davante ends up back in Vegas, but was formerly Oakland now. But yeah, I think you're going to see some more developmental stuff from Rodgers, especially with these new receivers he's got. It's not going to be like he's got a veteran now with Adams. I mean, and I'm not really going to call Lazard a veteran, even though he sort of is right now. He's not really the wide receiver one. I wouldn't say he is. But I think Rodgers might treat him as such, and we're going to see how that works out. Because obviously, I think these rookie guys that are coming in are going to need to get some reps under their belt first. But I think with some time, I think it could become a pretty formidable wide receiver core. So,
but Dale, are you at all worried that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to do the extra work with these new receivers at all?
I am, because in the past he has not been in mini camps and things like that. I thought I did hear somewhere that he may show up for some of the off-season stuff, which I think he needs to do, not for him, but for the rest of those guys. Those young guys need to know what a ball coming out of Aaron Rodgers' hands looks like. I mean, they need to develop chemistry. They absolutely do, because there is no wide receiver one. As all of you have been saying, like that, there isn't one right now. If you hang wide receiver one on Christian Watson, that's a lot of pressure to put on a kid early on. I'm a little concerned about that. If they don't put in off-season work, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to play in any preseason games. If he does, maybe he gets into the end of preseason game number 3, and then you have the same start the Packers had last year, right? You have this debacle where no one knows where the ball is going. Rodgers is expecting this and not getting it. What are they going to do? Run the ball 80 times in the first game? Like, I don't know. I don't know how that all works, but if he doesn't put in the work, it's going to be a long beginning of the season, I think, for Packer fans.
I think he may rely on AJ or the running backs for the first few games. I think they might lead in receiving the first few games so he get acclimated with the rest of the receivers.
I would totally agree with that.
I can see that.
I think it was you, Dale, that talked about how A.J. Dillon's gotten better at that, right?
He never caught the ball at Boston College, so no one knew that he could catch the football. I think he has above average hands for a running back in this league. I think both him and Jones should play at the same time in the backfield and run them out of the backfield in routes, because I think while they have different skill sets, they're both really athletic guys. And I totally agree. I think the leading receiver might be the leading receiver might be a running back the first 2 weeks, first week or two of the season.
Welcome to the Chicago Bears world, by the way. Walter Payton, I don't know if I just always have to throw this nugget out here. Walter Payton is the number 4 all-time leading receiver Chicago Bears history.
Really?
Yeah. So there you go. I always have to throw a Bears nugget in there.
Nice.
But when we talk about running then, right, what were your thoughts on what they did with the offensive line? I mean, was that enough to kind of help them going forward?
Are you asking me?
Or let's go to Parker. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, I mean, you can never have enough offensive linemen. Obviously people are going to complain. You're going to get the complainers that are like, why are we drafting an offensive lineman when we could have gotten so and so and so and so? But you need to have depth at that position. I mean, right now we have David Bakhtiari. See, now I'm messing up. David Bakhtiari, and then you have Elton Jenkins, and then you have Lucas Patrick. So right now our offensive line is pretty thin because you don't really know when David Bakhtiari is going to be back. He's still rehabbing his ACL, and that takes a long time to heal. And obviously, I think the Packers want him to be fully healed, or at least close to fully healed by the time he gets some reps. So I think drafting these offensive linemen, especially in this draft, is crucial for them because they're going to need depth at that position. And I'm glad that they addressed it when they did. So.
Yeah, and Lucas Patrick, he's a Bear now.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Now playing in Chicago.
Yeah.
Playing with the historic franchise. Did you hear him say that? Now playing
Yeah,
with the historic franchise.
I saw a little tidbit of that on Twitter.
Yeah, good times, Lucas.
So, but yeah, I forgot he was there. But nonetheless, obviously, I think we addressed that position, and I think you can never have enough offensive linemen, like I said. And I think it's good that we addressed it, and we need offensive linemen clearly. So it's good that we got them.
So I got two questions since we got Packers. So what's you guys' thoughts on Luke Getzy? And I want to get you guys' thoughts on St. Brown as well.
Love it. Yeah.
Luke Getzy, I think obviously he was a pretty good coach with Green Bay, and obviously with Rodgers, he had a pretty good chemistry with them. But I think he's going to be a good coach for you guys. He's younger, and I think he's going to kind of inject more of a physicality with your team, and I think overall he's just going to make it better. I think Fields is going to benefit from it for sure because obviously, I mean, he was a quarterbacks coach before becoming a head coach, so obviously Fields is a quarterback, so I think he's going to benefit the most from it. And yeah, I think the Bears could be. I'm not going to say they're going to be contenders, but I think they're going to be better than most people think. So
I take that.
I'm just going to take that as a quote that Parker said. Contenders and the Bears in the same sentence. We'll go with that.
Right.
The
rest of it doesn't matter.
Contenders being used very loosely, I might add.
What was your other question, Mike? You had the other question.
St. Brown. Yeah.
Oh, Equanimous. I think obviously I'm friends with him on Facebook, but he is obviously a Bear now, and he didn't really contribute all that much to Green Bay, mainly due to injury, and then obviously getting overshadowed by Lazard and Cobb and those guys. But I think with the Bears, obviously you guys really don't have a lot of receivers, but I think he can add an element. I mean, he was pretty good in the preseason and the games that he did play, and in the regular season too. But I think with your guys' offense and then Fields' ability to escape the pocket and throw downfield, I think he could be a big downfield threat for you guys. So
who needs wide receivers? We have a legendary Nathan Peterman signing with the Bears today. We also had Tajay Sharp signed with the Bears.
Sharp. Oh yeah.
So
Pettis,
has he signed yet? I thought he was.
No, he signed.
He did sign.
We let go the tight end favorite, Horsted.
Jesper Horsted, yes. That tight end room was starting to get a little crowded. I'm not going to say good yet, but crowded. We'll just say crowded. And that actually leads me to another question. Dale, what are your thoughts on the Packers tight ends then now going into the season?
It's a place where I thought the Packers would go in the draft for sure. Because what's Tanyan going to do? How healthy is he going to be to start off? I don't think that Josiah DeGuara is a tight end as much as he is an H-back. Dominic Daphne, also an H-back. Was it Tyler Davis? I think played a bunch of snaps at the end of last year. Like, who is that guy? I think the Packers keep going back to this. We're going to try to stopgap the tight end position over and over and over again. And if Packer fans are being honest, Robert Tonyan wasn't a guy either. Like, he turned into a very good player for one season, But is he the answer long term, or is it Aaron Rodgers making him into something he isn't? So I don't know. I thought for sure they would go in the draft, and we really liked Isaiah Likely out of Coastal Carolina. I think he would have been a great pick for the Packers, round 3, round 4, round 5, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So I am not confident in the room. To answer the question directly, that is a very big question mark for the Packers. In what I don't know. What are they going to do there? We have to hope that Kenyon is healthy. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yep. And Aaron Rodgers can really, I mean, he's shown where he can make just a guy more than just a guy. So he can do that. But you really, when it comes to crunch time, you need to have, those players that you can count on. And I'm not sure, I mean, what the issue was in the playoffs, right? But I mean, not having Tanyan was part of it, right? Dylan went down. But Rodgers, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. I think even with that though, Rodgers still should have scored at least a touchdown offensively. I mean, even with the injuries that we had, to not score a touchdown against a team that we were clearly moving the ball on, it just didn't really make sense, especially when we went down and scored within the first 2 minutes of the game. And then after that, just completely stalled out. So very frustrating, obviously, but, what can you do? But, I just wish the outcome would have been different, but, happened. I'm used to it.
Well, and so then you look at that side of the ball. The other side of the ball, did the Packers do enough in this draft on the other side of the ball? Obviously, they got Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt. I mean, is this going to be a defense that's going to be reckoned with, or was it kind of a flash in the pan this past year with how well they did?
I personally don't think so. I don't think they're going to be a flash in the pan. I think they're legit, and I'm pretty happy with the moves they made. Obviously Quay Walker, he's pretty athletic, very physical in space, can tackle really well. And then obviously the addition of Devontae Wyatt, that's huge. For Kenny Clark, he can finally get some help in the run defense and things like that. And then obviously we got the Kansas City Chiefs. Let me think of his name. Jerron Reed. We got him. So I think shoring up that part of the defense is going to be good because, I mean, obviously that takes pressure off Clark because Clark was usually getting double and triple teamed on defense, at least on the interior. And now with the additions of those two guys, I think it's going to lessen the impact of Clark getting the double and triple teams, and he can actually start being physical and getting towards the quarterback. So
do you see any other Dale, do you see any of the other later round defensive players that might be impactful in this season or going forward?
I love the Kingsley Enagbare pick in round 5. Highest PFF grade of a college rusher this year. He screams Packer edge guy, right? Stiff arm the tackle and run straight over the top of him. That's Kingsley Enagbare. Like, I am really excited for that guy. Is he going to get 30, 40 snaps a game? No. But behind Preston Smith and Rashawn Gary, it's a bunch of like last chance you guys. You know what I mean? Like, there's nobody else there. I think he is going to make an immediate impact. And I know you're talking about later guys, but Devontae Wyatt is a Kenny Clark clone. They are almost identical in body size. He's like all of his measurables are identical to Kenny Clark's. I've been saying for the longest that I think Kenny Clark needs to move to end in the 3-4, and they need to find a fat guy for the middle. Now, Kenny Clark has been great in the middle, right, for his size, but he's not a 350-pound guy. He's 6'3", 315. He's actually got a D end body in the 3-4. I would love to see TJ Slayton become a player and be able to plug the middle and move Watson and Clark to the outside, especially on run downs. I would love to see that. But I'm in love with the Kingsley Enagbare pick. I love that guy.
To your point for the Kingsley pick, I find it quite ironic that they decided to give him 55. Just pointing that out there. Obviously,
not ironic at all. I don't
you did say that he is a Zadarius Smith clone, and they give him 55. I just saying, just putting that out there.
That's a direct slap, don't you think?
Kind of odd, but
Well, I have a question here now, and I want to start with Grubb, since he doesn't necessarily have a skin in the game here. So as we're looking at it now, obviously we haven't gotten to training camp or anything yet. Who has the better defense now with these picks? Grubb, is it the Bears or the Packers?
Better defense. I mean, the Packers. If the Packers play like they played last year, and like they said, some of these additions to their team. I mean, I think the Bears are going to have a good young defense that's going to be up and coming. But the Packers have a defense that's established itself over the last few seasons and really established itself, last year in some of these places. I think the Packers can have the better defense all around, but you might have the Bears with a little more talent on the defensive side in some of their positions right now. But that doesn't mean they're going to be better. Talent doesn't always equate to better. And the Packers have played really strong over the last couple seasons on that defense. And I think that they can go out this year and prove, again, like we were talking about, it's not flash in the pan stuff. And this will be their season to prove that. I think some of these guys, obviously, that they've got are going to be good young players. But yeah, I think the Bears, again, maybe in some positions are more athletic or talented in some of them. But I just think the Packers right now, they have a chance to be a really good defense, and they're going to need it, I think. I really do. I think the Packers, if you talk about needs, I think who's going to have the better defense? Well, the Packers are going to have the better defense. I just think the Bears, right, they're not, again, we're not talking about winning Super Bowls this year. The Packers they've got a few seasons to win Super Bowls, so they need the better defense. If we're talking about need, the Packers need the better defense, and I just think with what's happening on their weapons on the offensive side, the defense is going to have to step up more than it's ever had to under Aaron Rodgers. And so I think it's just who has to be better is the Packers defense.
Mike, what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I agree what Grubb said. I think the Packers will be the better defense, but I think the Bears will be the most funnest defense to watch, the most excited defense, because you got nothing but young guys. You got Roquan, you got Robert Quinn, Jalen Johnson, Brisker, Gordon, Eddie Jack. It's just a bunch of younger just out there just running around. So I think it's gonna be really fun to watch them play. Like Grubb said, we really not playing for anything, so you can make mistakes. With the Packers, it's like you can make no mistakes at all. It's like Super Bowl or bust for the Packers right now. So, but I think Packers right now, but the Bears are going to be the more exciting defense to watch.
Are you right there too, Parker?
I would tend to agree with that. Yes, like everybody's been saying, I think it's Super Bowl or bust for Green Bay, and then obviously with the Bears, they're sort of still quote unquote rebuilding. There's another quote you can use. Rebuilding. So obviously, like you guys have been saying, they can have a little bit more freedom, and they are allowed to make more mistakes. Or obviously you don't want to make mistakes as a defense, but they're allowed more leeway than the Packers would be because again of their offensive woes that they still have to face, and then they're going to have to. The defense is now going to have to carry the load more than ever due to that. So. I think I'm in agreement with you guys on the fact that the defense is much more needed for Green Bay, but I think the Bears are going to be much more fun to watch as far as their defense.
And Dale, when you look at, obviously the Bears have new coaching. I mean, does that play a factor? And then with the Packers, kind of where they're at with their coaching as well, does that play a factor?
Of course it does. I mean, there's always an adjustment period, right, with coaches, with young guys especially. With vets, you can sort of figure it out. You've been in the defenses around the league for a couple of years. You get it. You start to get terminology. You understand the nuances of defense. I think young guys struggle with coaching changes more than vets do. But I don't buy the Bears have a better defense than the Packers. Like, I'm not buying that. I'm selling that all day long. They have elite. The Packers have elite corners. They have elite edge guys. They got a nose tackle that's probably top 2 or 3 in the league. Like, I don't think the Bears can match that skill position talent. They have the Packers have Devondre Campbell, who was an All-Pro. Now, is he going to do that again? I don't know. That was sort of a flash in the pan. Would I like to see it again? Yes, please. Many years in a row, but he's never done it before, right? So it's not like you can say this is going to be a perennial All-Pro, but overall, I think the Packers' defensive talent is much higher. I love Roquan Smith, though. He could wear a Packer jersey any day. I love that guy. I really do.
When you look at this division, I guess I wanted to finish out then. When you look at the division, who is going to win this division? I'm going to start with you, Grubb.
The Lions. This is the Lions' year. No, if it comes down to it, but I do think the Lions have a better chance than they've ever had. But if we talked about this a couple of weeks ago back with Cooper in here, and I mean the Vikings to me have a really sneaky chance to just be that team that if they could stay steady this year, even though they're in a transition, they still have a lot of their players and talent there. But man, it sure is hard to pick against Aaron Rodgers. Period. Right. So each team you could run through, and I could say the Lions this and the Vikings this, but it's kind of like the deal in New England for so long with Brady and them. It's like, who can knock off Rodgers? It doesn't matter if each season a team is better, right? It doesn't matter. It's like Rodgers is the guy to take. So my gut would always say the Packers, but I could just see the Vikings sneaking in there and taking it. But I do think you can't bet against Aaron Rodgers right now. He's the most talent in the league and the most steady player in the league as far as regular season goes, right? So, I mean, I'll go Packers, but I'll say watch for the Vikings to sneak in there.
What are your thoughts, Mike?
To me, I think Packers are a good team. I know I can't stand them, but my only concern with them is receivers. But I think Aaron Rodgers would make it work with the receivers he got. I don't trust Kirk Cousins at all. I think he got a lot of weapons around him, but I can't trust him to win the division when I got Aaron Rodgers, right? Just an overall better quarterback. So I hate to say it, but yeah, for the last time, the Packers will win the division for the last time.
So here's my I don't know. Yes, I went into the playoffs and I went with Stephen A. Smith. I said, yep, Aaron Rodgers is a bad man. They're going to win, and they didn't. So, Parker, why does Aaron Rodgers get the benefit of the doubt? He only beat Caleb Haney to get the Super Bowl. I mean, why does he get the benefit of the doubt?
I think it's due to his overall talent as a quarterback. I think, obviously, when he first got drafted, he was very, very raw as a prospect. He had to take some time to develop, and then, obviously, from 2009 onward, he just excelled. And then 2010 won the Super Bowl, and then ever since just has not come up in the postseason when he needed to. It's very unfortunate, but most of those, not all, but most of those playoff losses, I think, fall on the defense. They've given up, I think, if my math is correct, which my math sometimes is never correct, I think they've given up a total of 38.7 points per game in those losses. So, obviously, this loss, this past postseason fell on Rodgers. To me, the defense put up basically a shutout, other than obviously the special teams gaff with that blocked punt that led to points, and then obviously after the touchdown drive within the first 2 minutes, we just couldn't score after that. So that falls on Rodgers. It sucks saying that, but it's the truth, and obviously, I think that's why he gets the benefit of the doubt due to his overall talent as a quarterback. And then obviously, I think, with him and the fact that we got rid of Adams and now we have to get, we have to get acclimated to these new guys. It's going to be tough, but I think they can do it. And I think the Packers are going to come out on top in the division. But I do think, like you guys have been saying, I think the Vikings could sneak up in that second spot and possibly even in the first spot if things go well. But I think it's the Packers and then the Vikings, and then the Bears are going to come third, and then the Lions, unfortunately, are going to be in the bottom basement.
Interesting.
I think the Lions.
Man, I hope so.
Have the same record.
What was that, Mike?
I think the Lions and Bears might have a close record. Like, I think the Lions gonna be way better than what people think they're going to be.
Yeah,
the Bears going to be way better. It just neither team is there yet. I like what the Lions did in the draft.
For the Lions, I'm hoping they stink it up this year, because I've been telling you guys since last season. Next year is the draft for some really great QB talent, and I'd rather not trade away the franchise to get the QB. I'd rather just have the draft pick already up there in the top 3 picks and take it from there. But I don't think the Lions are going to be that bad this year. I don't think they're going to be bad enough to have that pick again that they normally have 1 through 5. So it's going to be tough for them to get that this year.
That's why I'm good if the Bears are bad, because then, if they get up there, I don't think they go quarterback, but then they can trade more assets. The Bears need a lot of players.
Absolutely. Yeah, next year is going to be the opposite of this year's draft, where I told you this year going into it, I said the first 10, 15 picks, there's not going to be that much excitement, right? Because when you have those quarterbacks up there, you got 3 or 4 guys, people start trading away all kinds of stuff. But this year we didn't have that. Next year, you're going to have some, if you're a top 5 team who doesn't need a quarterback, you're going to have a chance to come out a very rich team, because some teams are going to want to make some big moves next year, including teams that you could even look at a team like the Packers, right? I know that Aaron Rodgers has got the contract for a few more years, but hell, if they're sitting there going, well, maybe this is the year we should get one of these kids, they may, from a lower level down in the draft in the 20s to trade up. So you never know what one of these teams is going to do, but you can come out pretty rich next year if you don't need a quarterback and you're in the top 7 picks.
Well, speaking of knowing, go ahead, Mike.
Now, I just wanted to ask, when is it time to move on for Aaron Rodgers? Like, when do you guys feel like it's time?
I thought they were going to. I really did. Was it time? No, but I thought that all the cards were starting to fall in the right place and Aaron Rodgers was going to be somewhere else. I really did. I think now, though, you ride Aaron Rodgers until he decides. I think this is an Aaron Rodgers decision, not a Packers decision anymore, because you can't do anything with him now. He is going to put them in such a cap hell if he leaves after 2 years. There's nothing the Packers can do other than hope he plays out the contract.
Yep. I would agree with that for sure. Obviously, I think with the offseason drama that happened the last offseason before they drafted Jordan Love, that sort of had something to do with it. And then obviously nobody knew that Rodgers was going to come out and go on fire and throw for franchise record in touchdowns, franchise record in yards, all this other stuff, and then win MVP for a second straight year. And then obviously that was sort of a FU to the Packers front office from Rodgers saying, hey, why did you draft my successor without letting me know, like, I'm still an MVP caliber quarterback. And he proved it. So, but like you said, I think Rodgers definitely has the most leverage right now. I think it's either he plays out his contract with Green Bay or continues to play with Green Bay for as long as possible and rides off in the sunset under his own accord, not the Packers accord, or they get rid of him prematurely, go with Love, and then they're in a cap hell. I do not think it's going to be the latter. I think they're going to go smart and they're going to ride out Rodgers' contract, and he's just going to continue to play until he's well and ready and wants to retire. So,
because they can't draft another quarterback again, right? I mean, if they do, it's done with Rodgers, right?
Yeah.
They'd have to be real late, right? Like that developmental guy in the 6th or 7th round or 4th, whatever. But it can't be early, because what do you do? Now you've got Jordan Love on the roster, you have Aaron Rodgers on the roster, and you have some other young guy.
I tell you, I would Jordan Love that, by the way.
Well played.
That was a good pun.
So, Dale, you're obviously going with the Packers to win the division this year then?
Every year, though, I say the Vikings are going to be a player in this division, and every year they seem to crap all down their leg. Like, I don't get it. That's too talented of a roster to keep doing that with.
Mm-hmm.
Their offensive talent,
Agreed.
like Justin Jefferson, I am a huge fan. And if Dalvin Cook could actually stay healthy for an entire season, he might be he's top 2 in the league. I think he's the second best running back in this league talent-wise, but he always gets hurt. He is always missing games here.
Yeah.
He's dinged up. And they have a very good backup in Alexander Madison, too. Like, there's a lot of talent on this roster. I just don't get it. I don't know what happens to them. They lose games they shouldn't. I'm not a huge fan of Kirk Cousins. I know you said that Aaron Rodgers is a great regular season quarterback. I'd say Kirk Cousins is also a regular season guy. You put a little pressure on him and he folds. And I think that probably has something to do with why they can't win a division and they can't win big in the playoffs. But I think it does go Packers, Vikings. And then I agree with you, Mike, on I don't know where the Bears and the Lions end up. I think they're equally talented rosters. I love what the Lions did in this draft, especially their first 4 guys.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Really nice job in the draft. I mean, they got better today. That day, they got a lot better.
Having to deal with Aiden Hutchinson twice a year now, oh gosh, just
Jameson Williams, in my opinion, is the best wide receiver in the draft. I thought he was the most talented wide receiver in the draft. The only thing that kept him from going above Drake London, who I think is going to be awful, is his injury. That's the only reason he wasn't a top 5 pick. I think he's Jamar Chase.
And I like
that's a stealing.
I like Jeff Okudah too. I hope he have a bounce back year.
I was a huge fan of him too. And he's been really bad. Really bad.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, everyone, kind of wants to pick the Vikings. I have been saying Vikings are going to win. And a lot of it, I base it off of not necessarily Kirk Cousins, but the coaching, right? I think coaching makes a difference. And it'll be interesting, to see, what they're able to offensively do with Justin Jefferson and these different pieces that they have, and Adam Thielen and all these different pieces. It'll be interesting to see what they do. What I'm more interested in, and obviously we're not going to find this out for a few years, but, do the Packers really have a good head coach, or is it just Aaron Rodgers? I mean, that's a question that I don't know if we're going to know for a while.
Right. It's the same thing with Luke Getzy, right? Like, is it Luke Getzy running that offense, or is it Aaron Rodgers? Like, you're going to find out in Chicago in a big hurry which side of the fence it's leaning on, right? Mike McCarthy went to Dallas, and you're like, that's the Mike McCarthy I remember. He didn't have Aaron Rodgers, picking him up and holding him up.
Speaking of Mike McCarthy, that Dallas press conference was for the draft. It was just one of the most bizarre ones where he's sitting in the middle of the Joneses. It was just bizarre. So, unfortunately, he's not with the Packers anymore. So,
or fortunately, depending on your
from my case. Well, we definitely appreciate everyone joining us tonight. We've gone over an hour. A lot of great things to talk about that we have talked about, and. So, Parker, where can everyone find you again?
LombardiAv.com. It's a fan-sided affiliate site, so you can just go to fansided.com and then there's a link that is you can go to the sister sites, and there's a bunch of different NFL affiliate sites that you can scroll down, and it'll have the Packers, and it's labeled Lombardi Av. And then also on Twitter, it is at Lombardi Av, and then my personal Twitter is at Parker Mose.
Very good. And Dale, once again, where can everyone find you again?
You can find our Average Cheese Podcast at AVG Cheese on Twitter. We just started a website. I shouldn't even say it because it's like done by a 5-year-old. www.avgcheese.com. Please don't go there if you're listening to this or watching. You can't find us anywhere else. You could email us too, but you can find our podcast on all the places you listen to a podcast.
I'm just looking forward to when you go to the London game, and hopefully you're trying an accent out during the season and all that.
Yeah, it's not going to be that's not going to happen. I can't wait to go, but I'm not good with accents.
And Mike, where can everyone find you again?
First, I want to say I'm happy that I got a chance to talk to some Packers fans who wasn't just just going back and
Homers,
forth.
not just
Yeah.
homers.
Yes,
Yes.
there's a lot
Yes.
of us. Yes, there is.
So yeah, I'm grateful for that. But you can find me at OTG Shot Sports on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. You can type in Only Go Chicago Sports. We got a like a fan page where I'll post all the news and stuff like that. And on Spotify.
All great stuff. And Grubb, where can everyone find you?
Obviously, I'm Gridiron Grubb on Twitter. You can find my podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I'm obviously here weekly here with the Freezin 4. So that's where you can find me.
Well, and once again, I'm NFL Data. You can find me on Twitter, on YouTube, doing interviews, all sorts of fun stuff. And I wanted to throw out here, thanks again for joining us, the Monkey D. Willie. He said, hey, this is a Bears fan. Gain some respect for Pack fans. Hey, we can all get along sometimes, right?
Sometimes.
During the
Just
offseason.
not when the season starts. When the season starts, all bets are.
I would agree.
For sure.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Once again, this has been Freezin for NFC North Podcast on the NFL 2020 Draft, Packers and Bears. Thanks again, and we'll catch you again next week.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.